class is a weekly thing. Do check out that information over there. I'm not going to read all of it, but bigquestionsanswer.com has all the shows, it's all free. Loads of other happiness tips and videos and books and things, all free over there. This week's show is going to start off the first half about saving the environment the easy way. Second half is going to be about anything you want. You can ask any questions you want. That's why I call it a live Q&A, anything about life. My guest or debater, if he wants to, down there is my son Saleh. And all the things I've got to talk about are happiness truth based on ancient religions. They're all connected originally. But if you don't believe any of them, it's also based on science and logic. So you don't have to believe me. Hopefully, it all makes sense. Do press the like button to on this video if you appreciate what I'm saying. Hopefully, that will encourage YouTube to spread the word. So let's get going. Um, First thing is, we're going to be talking about the environment, but I'll be breaking it down to three parts. Have I copied the right thing? Yes. Okay, so I'm going to get started with nice and controversial. Housewives. I'm going to basically say in this first bit that women not going to work, and when I say going to work, they work at home, so that shouldn't be undervalued. Women not going to work is good for the environment, and yeah, that is sexist, and I think it's really important nowadays to be sexist. With all the craziness that's going on with people thinking that men are the same as women, and men participating in women's Olympics and winning all the events. So I think it's a bit of sanity that is much needed, and Islam doesn't change its ways with the popular views of society if society is going crazy. Anyway, so let's put it as a question. What in our modern lifestyle, I put over there at the top, what in our modern lifestyle is causing unexpected negative effects on the environment? And so, as I say, uh, all what I've got to say is not really my opinion. It's based on ancient spiritual teachings. I particularly go for Islamic teachings because it's the only original text of a religion that's 100% intact, and it's the most scientific, and well, probably because it's 100% the word of God. Like when it's not the word of God, you get things like you get in the Bible, which is things that are in contradiction with science, let's say. But anyway, I won't particularly read it. I'll just say that men have been given a responsibility to lead the family, and that's just because they're made differently psychologically and physically and things like that, right? And so there are very specific roles in the modern family. I mean, the modern family, in roles in the family according to Islam and so many religions in the past. Okay, and in short, the answer to the question, what is wrong with our modern lifestyle that's destroying the environment? Islam teaches that men and women should specialize, okay, specialize according to their biological differences, which has many benefits, including the incredible reduction of greenhouse gases simply due to women cooking at home. So that sounds really weird. So I'm not going to get Saleh to comment on that yet. I'm going to explain what I'm talking about. How has, women going to work increased greenhouse gases, let's say? So here we go. I'm going to basically read and kind of explain from the summary I produced. My summary is really condensed. I'll try to break it down with Saleh and see if he follows it. But do check out the description. All the material I'm basically talking about is in there. I always have written things that you can go through on my website. Do check out the description. Links are there. History shows that when women stopped cooking at home, it had a massive knock on effect on the environment and our health, which I'm not going to go into. I'm just going to focus on the environment bit. But do check out the link I provided, a great TED talk, which is actually about something else, about the problems in the environment, but they accidentally talked about what I'm going to say. Okay. When women began taking jobs away from the home, and I basically, as I say, say working at home is a job, so taking a job away from the home, they cooked less naturally, 'cause you can't do everything, and so bought more frozen food. Okay, so you can imagine that's bad for your health, but we won't go into that yet. Which began the industrialization of food. So it started a knock on effect. Okay, especially the exponential growth in consumption of meat. So I'll just point out meat is an easy food. It tastes good, whatever. You don't have to take much time, and it's kind of what happened. So raising cattle causes amongst the greatest negative effects on the environment, both causing amongst the most greenhouse gases, but also destroying large amounts of rainforest and consuming up to 90% of the water used in a country. So there's a whole bunch of facts there, Silo. Like, have you ever heard of any of these things that I've mentioned about cattle using 90% of the water, causing most of the greenhouse gases in the country, destroying large parts of the rainforest? Ever heard of that before?
Nope. Well,
Okay,
destroying
so
the large parts of the rainforest, yeah, but not everything else.
cool. So yeah, so many people don't know the amazing, incredible damage caused by meat production, and that only started happening when we started eating more meat. We don't need to eat so much meat. Okay, it wasn't natural. Like it isn't natural. Okay, and it only started happening when women started going to work and not really cooking food. Okay, so and so which all leads to desertification. That's another problem. Okay, so people might not know that large amounts of the world are turning into desert because we're not treating the plants properly, especially if you mow them all down. And then I don't want to go into all the craziness that happens on that land where the you know cattle are grown. For example, most of the drugs, or let's say antibiotics, are fed. Most of the antibiotics in the world are fed to those cattle just to keep them going because of the terrible conditions they're brought up in, right? So imagine the kind of meat you're eating, right? Anyway, so some may ask why. Okay, so what was it? Rapidly reducing the resources of the earth. So if you turn the whole earth into desert, you're not going to get much good out of it. You can't you can't farm that area. Anyway, so some may ask why men should not cook at home. Such a question arises from underestimating the already existing specialization of living things in nature. Okay, so when people say why don't men just do those jobs that women have traditionally done, they don't understand how complicated our bodies are. They think it's just they completely underestimate it. This is a good word to it, right? So for example, women's brains change to better take care of babies when they're born. So when when a woman's about to have a baby, her brain is literally changing to do the job of taking care of a baby, right? And like so many people just don't appreciate how specialized we already are. Psychological studies prove men are more interested in mechanical things and women are more interested in people, which makes men better industrialists. And you can see that all the time. Like, who are the best chefs in the world? Men. But who are the main chefs in the house? Women. Okay, it's just a different way of doing things. Industrialization is doing it large scale. Okay, so anyway, the difficulty some people have with that, i.e., men working outside, women staying at home, taking care of children in the house, okay, is that it means that men make more money, which is not a bad thing, unless you value people according to how much money they make, which Islam doesn't. So I haven't given you much time left, but any thoughts?
Well, certain jobs don't actually require physical tasks like programming. There's nothing physical about that. It's mainly just intelligence. So men and women can be equal in that sense.
Right.
About
Okay.
like women increasing the amount of what do you call it greenhouse gases, that's not necessarily true because there's many other factors as well. Like anyone traveling, can cause greenhouse gases. It's not
So
just
you've
women.
made some
And
good
when women
points.
started
Yeah, go on. Go
working,
on.
yeah,
Yeah.
the technology advanced more and we've taken up more greenhouse gases naturally anyways. There's no way it's just affected by women only.
A couple of things because I want to remember what you said, right? So I think the first point you made was like not all work is involves a lot of physical work, right? I didn't actually say physical work, but that's kind of part of the truth, right? Okay, so for example, coding. Um, I'm a coder, and when I was doing my computer science degree, like next to none of the best programmers, like basically none of the best programmers, like to the top 20 are all men, right? Okay. Um, and it's about mechanical things like men are more interested in computer games, into computers and things like that. Women just find it really boring. They're more better into people, which is a good thing, right? Anyway, so there's just specialization. And then you said a bunch of other things like yeah, it's true that there's all sorts of other causes of damage to the environment, but this is a massive cause. So we can talk about the other causes. There are other answers for that, but let's move on. Okay, but good point, Salah. Right. What else was there? Oh, yes, next one, economics. So we talked about one easy way. We're talking about easy ways of fixing the environment. If women go back home, take care of the children, there's a million other good things for reason why that's beneficial. Okay, but that's fairly easy way possible if you can do that, right? Here's another, you can say, easy way that we can um, help the environment, and that's economics. So people think that you know this whole environmental problem just sort of happened by some sort of, let's say, accident. But I'm going to tell you that we've created a system where necessarily we're going to destroy the environment. Okay. And that system is not quite capitalism, it's a special kind of capitalism. Okay, so the question I'm going to put there is the system at fault for destroying the environment? Okay, when I say the system, people go, oh, there's something wrong with the way we're living. And yes, there is something really fundamental. And so there's a verse of the Quran there. I'm not going to go into it too much because I'm trying to keep it like really simple. Um, but basically, it points out there's this thing called interest. When you borrow money, you have to pay more money back. Okay. We think that is a normal part of capitalism, but actually it's not. It's actually been forbidden for thousands of years. Okay. Not just in Islam, also in Judaism and maybe some other, who knows, right? Okay. And it creates a crazy mindset in so many different ways, but also, well, let me just read a short version. Capitalism is not bad only when it's based on interest. Interest creates a cycle that necessarily mines the earth to death. Interest is unnecessary and can be replaced with normal investment. So some people say interest is part of the capitalist system. How else can you get money? Well, actually, you can do normal investment, but that's kind of like a mini sort of side thing. Um, what do you understand, Sala? I'm just wondering how confusing what I've just said is. Interest creates a cycle that necessarily mines the earth to death. Does that make any sense to you? Do you know why interest create? What cycle does it create? Why does it mine the earth to death? Any
Because it
idea?
keeps on taking money that's and just continues to take money and it does actually give any benefit
No,
because
that's not it.
someone
But
yeah.
let me try. Let me give the longer explanation. See if you can figure it, understand. Right? Okay. So capitalism, as I say, is not bad, except when it uses interest-based loans, as that creates a cycle where everyone has to create more each year to pay back. Okay. So then they might not have enough money, and then they have to borrow more money, and they have to create even more. Okay, so as all wealth eventually or eventually or originally comes from the earth, it means economies that use interest necessarily have to mine the earth to death, because it all comes from the earth. It's like money doesn't come from nowhere. It's like if you didn't have food, you wouldn't have anything to sell, and it kind of builds up. Okay, so everything, money you can imagine, originally has its value or comes from the earth. Okay, so if you want to create more money, well, where does that come from? Right, you've got a certain amount of money at the moment. Okay, then you borrow, and then somehow you have to give more money back than you had in the first place. Where does that come from? It has to come from the earth. So you have to keep mining the earth. Is that confusing? Does that make any sense?
Yeah, I understand now.
Cool. Okay. So Islam and other religions ban interest in the economy as God, who is the source of all ancient religions. So as a Muslim, you have to believe in all the other religions. It's not like the God suddenly woke up and said, "Here's Islam," and forgot all of the people. Like in Islam, we're told that everybody of all time and all places always had a religion. So we believe in Christianity, Judaism, Hinduism, Buddhism, and all sorts of like Mother Earth religions and whatever. Okay, just so kind of side information. Okay, the original sources, so they've been corrupted over time, right? Anyway, so new, so God, who's the source of all the truths or the whatever from ancient religions, knew of the dangers of interest. Interest, so that's why, God said, don't do it. Okay. Interest also has many other dangers, like it encourages materialistic greed. Okay. So just being, so like the idea that you can have now something you cannot afford if you take a loan, that is part of the problem. Okay. So it encourages this materialism, like overexcitement with stuff you can't have. And so it does that, and it's the only way countries can afford to pay for wars. So, like, wars are not good for the environment. Let's just keep tying it back to the environment, right? So, wars are incredibly expensive, like billions and billions of pounds, right? I can't remember the last time there was one. There was the lot, like Afghanistan war was like a couple of trillion pounds. Like, there's nobody can afford that. No country can afford that. It's just like, and we're like trillions of pounds in debt. Like all the rich countries are in trillions of pounds in debt. So basically, in short, okay, obviously, war can destroy the environment, really bad for the environment. This is how interest drives people to become insane like Satan. Okay, so like we're doing insane things, like starting wars, buying more things than we can afford, um, and on top of that, we're like, yeah, so many other bad things. Anyway, so not caring for the damage caused to our own planet is in short. Okay, some people may say that interest is a normal it is, sorry, a normal part of business, but that's not true. A more sensible approach to getting money for business in a straightforward investment. So instead of, you know, so in that case, investors have to think carefully if a business is a good idea. But with interest-based loans, banks often give loans knowing the money can't be paid back, in which case they will take your house, which they're very happy to do so, right? Okay, or whatever is secured on the loan. Okay, so have you ever heard? Did you know that if you can't pay your loan back and you said, "Oh, okay, it's secure, the loan is secured on your house," they can take your house, the bank. Did you
Yeah,
know that? Right. Okay. So it's not necessarily in the bank's interest to even care if the money is going to come back, because they know they'll just steal your house basically. Right. Okay. So it's not a good system. It's only, and there's a million other things that are really bad about, interest-based loans. It's a good way. Basically, it's a way that the rich rob the poor more and more. Anyway, so I've talked a lot. Any thoughts? You came up with some brilliant disagreements a minute ago. Any more?
mm. Well, it depends. That not everybody is born rich. Yeah? Some people are
Mm,
poor, but then they become rich. So it's not just I'm poor, I'm gonna stay poor. I'm rich, I'm gonna stay rich. Rich people can become poor. Poor people can become rich. So it's not really that unfair of a system because if you become rich, then you can take advantage of a system. It's not
I
like
think I know what you're
someone's
saying. Are you
birthright.
saying that if you're poor, then you need interest-based loans to get more money to invest in yourself in a business, whatever, to become rich? Is that what you're saying? Because
But
are
what I'm
you?
saying is that
Yeah.
everybody builds off each other. Like eh, you have to take money from somewhere, yeah? The
Yeah.
money doesn't come from out of nowhere. Like if you're
Yes.
rich, you took money from poor people. Or actually, no matter how much money you have, that money had to come from somewhere else. So you have to use each other to climb up to the top. Otherwise, you're not gonna get anywhere.
Okay, so I agree that richer people should invest in poorer people because actually it's good for everybody because you can get quite lazy once you're really rich, you're not that motivated. Okay, so if you give it to the really motivated poor people relatively, then it will help them. And getting poor people less poor is actually good for the whole system because if you have lots of really poor people and a few rich people, there's going to be eventually a revolution. It's a very dangerous situation. So
It's also like
anyways,
natural selection. If you're smart enough to have a business and then
yeah.
you ask for a loan, you can
Yeah.
actually invest it and make money with it.
So
If
I'm not saying there shouldn't be investments. I'm just saying not interest-based investments because they're not always motivated to make sure you will pay the money back. Yeah,
but
but
it's
yeah.
your fault for asking for the loan in the first place then, that if you can't
Sure,
make it
you
back.
have to take some responsibility, it's true. So that's an interesting point. So you're coming up with really good points. I appreciate that. It's really good. Okay. So obviously, there's more answers to the questions, but we want to kind of make it like move on and keep with the meatiest topics, right? Or the main topics. So anyway, next one is insider. Okay, so have you ever heard of that title might not make sense. So I just want to check. Have you ever heard of like inside information in like when people
Yes.
are trading, right? So it means basically you have some special information that really helps you out like gives you an advantage. Yeah,
Hmm.
so that's what that title is about, and basically it's the inside information, let's say, that God gives us as all human beings. God helps us out, like lots of amazing crazy ideas that would make no sense at the time but are really good to save the environment. So it's actually again coming back to the main title of this half of the show, the easy way to save the environment. Okay, and so anyway, what special information does Islam have, as I say down there, that will save the environment? And so, just as one example, Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, said or forbade the skins of wild beasts being used as floor coverings or as mattresses. Okay, so that's a bit weird, and it's got ref there because I've just copy pasted it from the notes as usual. If you go to the notes in the description, you can see the reference and the links and stuff. But anyway, um, the point is, like, first of all, that's really weird. Like, how can you see how that saves the environment by not killing wild beasts? And actually,
Because that's
the
more of a luxury though, because you're having it as a carpenter of clothes.
so
Because
actually the translation is sorry, I just noticed. Okay, so from translating from Arabic to English is not always very easy. I'm gonna update that translation. It's actually supposed to be predators, skins of where's it? Wild beasts. I'll get rid of wild beasts and write predators. Help people focus. Predators.
yeah, but you can
Okay.
still make clothes out of that. Like instead of
Yeah.
having
So
it as a carpet, you
So
can wear
it's
it on
so
yourself.
it's so let me put it this way. Islam is saying it's all right to kill all most animals if you need to, have a rug or whatever it is, but don't kill predators. Someone explain that, right? Okay, because it's a bit more complicated than people might realize. So
Ah,
not even modern day green political parties would go to the extremes Islam does. It teaches you to plant a tree, even if it's the last thing you do. Like you're about to die, plant the tree if you got a seed. Like that's really extreme. Right? Can you imagine somebody in the Green Party, some politician saying that? Can you imagine?
maybe.
It'd be a
Yes.
bit weird. I'm not sure if they get elected, but anyway, okay. So I mean, Sounds kind of cool in a way, though. Okay, so it also has other weird sounding teachings, which we only now know are now are realizing the importance of, such as not killing predators, or as doing so has a massively negative impact on the environment. So I'm going to explain how that's possible in a minute, but let me click that way. Okay, so here goes the kind of slightly more in depth but still summary. Islam gives us inside information on the workings of the environment so that we can save it. Only in recent times, after we messed up the environment and are heading towards a global warming, have we realized the importance of planting trees. Islam valued trees over 1,000 years ago, well over 1,000 years ago, with the extreme teaching that if you have a seed in your hand and you're about to die, plant it. This is probably more important than most people realize, not just to balance our carbon footprint, but also to reverse desertification, like things, the whole world slowly turning into a desert, which is wiping out the Earth's ability to sustain life. Like if you have a desert, you don't grow stuff anymore and you can't feed people. So it also teaches never to kill a bee, long before it was known that they are the most important pollinators in the world, without which life would end. And now they are dying very quickly because of monoculture. Ever heard of monoculture, Saleh?
No.
It's like when you basically plant miles and miles of one thing. Okay, it drives bees crazy, basically, because it's like they have to, because they end up just having one kind of food, one kind of plant, one kind of nectar. It's just like horrible for them. Anyway, it's which is a byproduct of industrialized food. Like you have to have miles and miles of one thing to specialize so you can make whatever. Let's not get into that. But anyway, then there are even more unusual teachings in Islam, such as not killing predators, which we now know are very few compared to herbivores. Okay, so only a few predators compared to maybe 100 herbivores, right? Killing predators destabilizes ecosystems and so causes many other animals and plants to die off. There's a massive knock-on effect if you
But aren't we
mess.
not technically the predators then? Because they're killing the herbivores as well for the predators.
Yeah, so we're
But
not.
doesn't
Yeah,
that
so
not make us policing the old predators?
oh, that is really interesting idea. Okay. So, but let me kind of go into the facts that we do know, right? So, something that this idea of killing off predators is really bad. Okay, is only something we recently realized, appreciated in, and if somebody wants to search up Yellowstone Wolf Project. Okay, where they brought some wolves back, only a few wolves, and into Yellowstone, which is like a famous. Have you heard of Yellowstone Park? Must have,
Yes.
yeah. Okay, Yogi Bear and all that. Okay, and some probably more important things than Yogi Bear, who doesn't really exist. So basically, like, not only did so many animals come back into like existence, not existence, but come back to the park and grow, like so many plants that are basically died off almost, okay, just come back from the brink, or maybe just died. I'm not sure exactly the details, right? So it's incredible, the small changes. That's a very interesting idea you had about. I don't think human beings as predators replace wolves as predators, because they all have different jobs. Do you get it? Like, they poo in a certain way, and they rub against certain plants, and they have all sorts of weird things that they do that human beings don't do. Do you
Hmm.
get it? So we don't. It's not like you. It's like we. It's not like we can kill off all the animals, and say, you know what, we will do. We're good enough predators. It's not that, like, we
Well, we
pray.
can artificially recreate what they do. so you don't necessarily need them. You just
That
have to
that's a
study them
see that's
enough.
again a theory that people who don't really understand nature or science or whatever, they kind of go, oh yeah, it's really easy to replace, it's really easy to fix. Like if they could do that they would have, but they didn't. They had to bring out those wolves to sort the problem out, because all these animals are incredibly complicated. Like when you look at our eyes, like they're the best cameras in the world and so many other things. Like we have been so detached from nature that we actually think that we can do these things. We would be dead without nature in like a day, right? We'd just
Yeah,
be
but nature
finished.
can help us understand everything, and then when you can understand nature, you can understand how to replicate it. So that's how you learn different things. Like
we're, we're,
maths,
we're
you
getting there very,
understand
very
maths, and you
slowly.
can start
Yeah.
doing maths, let's say.
Yeah,
So you
it's not.
can technically
Yeah.
replicate what nature
It's
does.
nature is so complicated. We're nowhere. Anybody who understands science knows that they know nothing. Like all the best scientists will tell you, like the more we learn, the more we realize we know nothing. Okay, so it's just way too. It's insanely complicated how complicated nature is. Anyway, so but good points. The reason why they're good points is what you're saying is what commonly is thought. People have no idea how complicated and amazing and how much service nature does for us to keep us alive. Anyway, so we have to be aware at 43 past we've got to break our fast, so make sure you're looking at the clock. Yes, Saleh?
Yeah, I know.
Okay, so and even before that, like 2 minutes before that, I'm gonna explain like why are we fasting, what's going on, and all that kind of stuff. Anyway, so question one: how can I get a sustainable, i.e., good for the earth, job? And I suppose a bit of background is important. So people do ask. This is becoming an increasingly important question for different reasons, especially in our point in history. Let's just say, like in the past, like you didn't have that many choices of jobs. Like you had to be a coal miner or I don't know whatever. Like there, like as we move into the future, more and more kinds of jobs are created and more as we go back in the past, it was very much a survival thing. Only a few hundred years ago, people literally didn't have birthdays for kids under 10 years old because they didn't know if they're going to survive. So it's like, what's the point? That kind of thing, right? So it's like the world keeps changing, and as we move into the future, we're able to think about the kinds of jobs we want, and more and more people are becoming more careful as they also realize the effect they have on the earth as well. Okay, and how much we're damaging the earth far more than we were capable of in the past, right? So there's a loads of very good reasons why younger people are thinking a lot more about like what kind of job are we doing? We don't want to just pay the bills and destroy the planet, basically. Okay, so I'm going to point out a verse of the Holy Quran that really helps with this, because we have to have a careful mindset. And this question is not just about having a sustainable job. Actually, the way I'm going to answer it is like, how do you find any good job? There's a method I would like to kind of talk about. Okay, and the verse of the Holy Quran might not obviously be make sense or be relevant, but it goes basically all thanks should really be given to God who improves things in steps, basically evolves things. Okay, and as we as human beings are told to try to copy God in as many ways as possible, as we're the image of God, as you might hear in different religions. Um, so we should also try to copy those qualities of, for example, improving things in steps rather than going for perfection in one go. So, short answer is there is no perfect job that has no negative effects in the world. I don't know if that sentence makes sense. So, there is no job that has no negative effects in the world. So, there's no perfect job, right? Necessarily. Okay, maybe there is somewhere out there, but you shouldn't think there is. Okay, as we do not live in a perfect world, right? We don't live in a perfect world, so don't expect perfect things. What we can do is have a net positive effect. So net positive means overall, like we might have a little bit of a negative, but overall we're going to have a net positive effect. Ever heard of net? The word net? You do business, don't you, Sala?
overall.
Net versus gross. Yeah, overall. Yeah, that's the word. Yeah. Okay. So we have a net positive effect is what our target should be, and we should learn, evolve, and slowly make things better. So we can't just make things better by just imagining things and then suddenly doing them. We have to kind of make mistakes and go, oh, I had an idea that wasn't quite right. Then you evolve by learning and then take the next step forward. You can't just suddenly make things better. So let me kind of explain it a bit more detail as well. By thinking that all thanks should go to God, we dodge the danger of thinking we are special and the world owes us a job according to our thinking, which is a major problem as well, right? People go, I'm not going to do this job, I'm not going to do that job. I think me and you, we're always talking about this side. Like, I think maybe you should try different things out. Because you might have an idea of what you want to do. And I'm not saying don't go for it at all, but like on the way, you might have one or this opportunity or that opportunity, and maybe take that as much while you don't have any other opportunities. If you possibly can, right? If you can possibly do it, okay, try to push yourself, then you actually learn things on the way by doing them. So instead, we should start by trying to make the smallest possible difference. So we're not going for perfection. We're not like, this is a job we have to do, and I'll just jump into that job and somehow people accept me into that job or something, right? What we do is we aim small, okay, and then we work upwards, starting from the ground upwards, sort of thing. By thinking too big, we stop ourselves from taking the first step, right? So if it's like, I have to save the world like in one go, like you can't do anything about it. You can't do that, right? So then you can't do anything at all. Okay, so that's the problem about thinking too big straight away. Practice makes perfect because it tests our theories and so evolves us into becoming more capable being. So when I say practice make perfect, it's like, don't stick with your theories of how you think things will be. Oh, one day I'll have a business and it will do this, right? You have to get involved. You have to get mucky. You have to get your hands dirty. You have to do things and then you learn, right? Okay. By not working in the real world, our theories are not tested and we don't learn. Success, as they say, is 1% inspiration and 99% pers. I thought it is. It says, I thought it was perspiration, but I copy pasted preparation. Maybe I wrote it wrong. Perspiration, okay, is the original saying, I think. Okay, being basically the success doesn't really come from ideas. It's a tiny bit about ideas, but it's actually more about hard work. Okay, so how do you do hard work? Well, you know, hard work is about work ethic, and you only get work ethic by working. Okay, it's like a muscle, right? If you just stand on the sidelines and you don't do any work, you actually get lazy. But by doing work, you understand how to be good at hard work. It's like you can't theoretically be good at long distance running. You have to do long distance running and your body adjusts to that. It's the same as work. Work is hard work. Okay. So while you are looking for a job, also volunteer. So you're exposed to new ways of thinking beyond your existing limits. I'm actually talking quite slowly. I just realized looking at the time. Okay.
Yeah,
So
or you can look for a low level job, like instead of just volunteer, because there's more
yeah,
benefit.
sure. So while you're so yeah, good. Which is the thing I said about start small and work your way up. Okay. So when do you understand the thing? I know we're running out of time, but do you understand the thing about what was I saying? When you volunteer or whatever it is, you start meeting people and you start seeing beyond your existing limits. Like, do you understand that we all have very limited view of the world? Like what we see as the world is not really the world. It's like what we understand of the world. Do you get it?
Yeah,
Yeah. And so when you meet people and see new ways of thinking, go, oh, that's a different way of doing things. Oh, okay, maybe, and then you learn something, right? And you broaden your horizons, as they say. Okay. Your value to others is another point. Your value to others is based on how much you can help them. So always have the service mindset. Okay. So the way of thinking, like if you have this very positive attitude in the world, like I'm going to help you, I'm going to be whatever, right? Then you actually become more valuable because that's the kind of people need in the world, right? The people who have that positive mindset are the people who do the job the best. Okay, I could talk about, oh man, there's some great talk. I'm gonna throw this in, right? The guy who had, oh man, what's that? Cheetos. Cheetos. Ever heard of Cheetos?
Yes.
Right? The guy who invented that was a sweeper, and he had such a positive attitude to his sweeping, okay, that somehow he used that same positive attitude to create an amazing brand. And now he's a billionaire. So do YouTube that at some point. Anyway, run out of time. Didn't give you much to say there, but hopefully. Do check out the description to read that more about that. Okay, so I think I'm not gonna. Am I gonna risk? No, I'm gonna try to start on the next one a little bit. Okay, and then yeah, and then like I'll speak about for 1 minute on this, and then we'll talk about breaking fast and preparing to break the fast and in Moshe and all that kind of stuff. So anyway, can words or ideas really change our lives? This is really important to this show. Like some people might be just thinking we're just talking. Like, how's that going to change the world? Okay, and so there's a verse of the Holy Quran. I'm kind of not going to read it too much because it's kind of like still a bit old style English and whatever. Like people don't say deem it a favor. Okay, so basically, people think like religion and so many other things, like you're doing, like if somebody becomes a Muslim, like you're doing them a favor, you're listening to God, you're doing God a favor. Like you got it completely upside down. God is doing you a favor by telling you these amazing things to make your life better, and you only realize that if you're honest, right? Like you're truthful to yourself, right? So that's kind of just the beginning. So I'm just going to quickly read the short version, then I'm going to go in the short kind of answer to the question: can words or ideas really change our lives? Science is ideas based on facts. Okay, so good ideas from areas of science such as psychology, which tell us what makes us happy. Sorry, have I read that wrong or something? Let me read that. Good ideas from areas of science such as psychology tell us what makes us happy. The sentence is terrible. Be honest, listen to truth, and you'll benefit is a short version. Okay, so let's get on with preparing to fast, break our fast. So 43 past, which is 1 minute's time. We're going to break our fast. I'm going to quickly explain. Me and Saleh are Muslims, and so fasting has been proven now to be good for our health, but we've known, been it's been taught for thousands of years, including in Islam, Judaism, different religions. And so what we're going to do is when we break our fast, um, we normally have dates. And first of all, I do want to do a mini shout out to my neighbor, my Jewish neighbor, by the way, okay, who's brought these dates for us, celebrating, Ramadan. So Bismillah, we're going to say Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim, in the name of God, the gracious, the merciful. Allahumma laka samto. This is Arabic. Wabikamantu Allah rizqaka aftato. Oh God, do we break our fast with this? You got 4 seconds. You did it early. It's okay. It doesn't matter.
No,
Yeah.
it's 20 seconds after.
Oh, I'm looking at the clock. It's got exactly, I don't know.
No, this clock is.
Oh, I don't know.
You're looking at your stream one, aren't you?
Yeah, I'm looking at the clock that I've got down there. The
What
Windows
clock do you
clock.
have? Clock is behind.
That's weird. I can't believe that. We have to compare clocks,
Mine
After.
is 30 seconds past now.
And so is my one.
Yeah.
Anyway, whatever. So you broke up 43 past, didn't you, or 42?
43, like 10 seconds
Yeah.
after.
Hmm. Oh, no, I don't know. Oh, this is another thing. Why am I drinking milk from a honey jar? That's another weird thing to talk about. So, in our family, and it's actually not just in my family, it's like an Islamic thing to not waste at all. And when you don't waste at all, it's not just about saving the environment like we've been talking about, but actually you actually feel more lucky when you really like clean your plate clean. That's actually a teaching in Islam. Oh, Sada, you have to tell me if people are commenting. What's this? Bigs in best followers, primes, and viewers. Actually, I don't know what that's
Yeah,
all
that
about.
happened a long time ago. That's some bot or something.
Some bot. Okay, I didn't even notice that. Yeah. So what I do, so to scrape out all the honey, I warm up the milk, and then shake it a little bit. And when it's hot, it melts. So not a single drop of honey is wasted. It all goes in here. By the way, Saleh, have you ever tried milk and honey as a
Yes, but
combination?
not like that. Never.
Yeah, not like that, but yeah, it's a really good combination. Definitely should try it. Really healthy, really tasty. Anyway, let's get back onto the main subject. So, um, here we go. So, science. So here's kind of like the summary of the idea, or like a slightly deeper explanation of what I just said about science generally as ideas that help us. So we should anyway. So science has made our modern world possible. Science is just words, but based on facts. The more we learn, the more powerful we become. So if we listen to words based on facts about what makes us happy or how to help the environment, for example, we will be doing ourselves a favor. You only need to be honest with yourself when assessing the facts relating to the teachings of Islam. Are they based on science? The question is that's what you want to ask yourself, right? Okay, so if they're based on facts, that's going to help you. The Holy Quran backs up everything it teaches with science and logic and has been continuously proven to be correct, over often being proved right over thousands of years ahead of its time. One example, slightly embarrassing example, but I do write this stuff in a rush. One second. So, one example is that of circumcision. Okay, I'm not going to explain what that is. Do Google it if you don't know. Saleh, you know what that is, right?
Yes.
Yeah, which has been prescribed by religions for thousands of years and sounds like a crazy idea, but recently has proved to protect against STDs. So, I don't know if you know what that is. Do you know what
Hmm.
that is? Yeah. Okay. So, a weird example maybe, but that's just one of endless examples of how Islam especially is thousands of years ahead of science. And so if you listen to these words, okay, it's going to make your life better, right? That's just one way, but it talks about so many ways that makes us happier and so many practical things that we're actually totally failing at the moment, like how to connect with other human beings and be happy and stuff like that. That's why I do these shows, because we're so terrible at being happy. Like, people, despite having more and more things, are becoming more and more miserable. Any thoughts, Sarah?
Mm. I'm pretty sure you said something about that before. That recently, that more things you have, more miserable you are. It just depends on the person, doesn't it?
So, yeah, this is a really interesting point, yeah, that you focused on. So it's like it's really weird how we can have so much stuff and be so miserable. Okay, and so let me explain logically why that might happen. So we're not good. We're not good at making decisions about happiness, right? We tend to choose the wrong things because we think short term. So a really good example is like nowadays it's very common not to talk to our parents. Okay, in modern Western families, because in the short term you don't get much money. It's like, what's the point of that? I don't, I'm not going to talk to my parents because they're boring. I'm not going to talk to my family; they're boring. And I find that even happens in even our family, sort of religious family, who are taught from a very young age, family are very important, but we kind of reduced it to, WhatsApp messages is not really good communication. So it's really easy to slip into bad habits, and Islam teaches us the really good habits. So to the extent that, for example, we've got a good relationship with my Jewish neighbor and many other neighbors, and it's not my direct neighbor, it's kind of further down. But the point is, in Islam, we say loads of people, 40 houses to the right, 40 houses to the left, 40 houses in front, and 40 houses behind are all neighbors, and we have to be best friends with all of them, right? Okay, so if it wasn't for me going up to him and so many other people, people just wouldn't know each other. Actually, my Jewish neighbor is really friendly, but he's more friendly than most, right? But the point is, maybe because that's part of his religion as well, right? Anyway, it's like these ideas are really practical and make a massive difference, and without them, we don't actually follow those tips. Basically. Anyway, next point, question 3. Let's quickly copy it. Okay, last one. What can make you happy no matter what happens? Okay, so short answer from the Holy Quran is it is the remembrance of Allah, that is God, the ancient name for God. Okay, the one God, basically. Even Jesus used that name, the Hebrew version, that hearts can find comfort. So, despite having our physical needs met, Western society is the most depressed it has ever been. This shows what keeps us happy is deeper than that, i.e., physical things. Psychologists have long known that meaning is fundamental to happiness, and what could be more meaningful, lasting, and beautiful than losing yourself in God? So it's a weird description, maybe, but the source of all beauty as reflected in God's creation, which is nature. So I'm not sure how understandable that is, that phrase, losing yourself in God. What does that mean to you?
Hmm. Just
Does it mean
focus on
anything?
God and God only.
Hmm. Yeah. Kind of means a bit more than that. But let's see if you understand more when I go into this more in-depth kind of description or explanation. You can have everything, but if you do not have a purpose with which you wake up every morning, you will be empty and lost. Now, you might not feel that as a teenager, but people you know, increasingly do. And that's why psychologists say it's so important. So I think, maybe a teenager is not quite the same as an adult, the same way of thinking. Certainly their brains are different, they're still developing. Obviously, a baby is completely different to a teenager. So hopefully you can appreciate the differences, right? Okay. But this is what psychologists say. Like, having meaning in your life is absolutely essential. Without it, we're completely lost. Um, Okay, a feeling that has made modern Western society the most drugged, addicted, and depressed in history. So these are people who do have things enough to buy drugs and to buy stuff that expensive things like alcohol and things that get them addicted, right? The root cause is nihilism. Ever heard of nihilism?
Yes, but I forgot what I meant.
Okay, it's the idea that there is no purpose in life, which is how most Westerners live their lives. Nihilism not only robs us of the dopamine, that's the happiness chemical. Ever heard of dopamine?
Not sure.
Yeah. Okay. So it's one of the key chemicals that make us happy, right? Okay. So nihilism not only robs us of the dopamine rush that we are designed to feel when working towards something important and meaningful. So our bodies literally are designed so that when we work towards if we have a plan and we work towards that meaningful plan, we actually get this dopamine thing, right? Dopamine rush, like a fake drug, you might call it, or like a real drug more because it's real chemicals. I don't know, body chemicals. Anyway, um, so our bodies are designed to work towards plan and meaningful things, and it actually gives us chemical highs by doing that, right? So when you have nihilism, it's like, oh, Nothing means anything. So therefore, you can't even get that um, the high that you get from dopamine, right? Where am I in this thing? Working towards something important, meaningful, but leads to other kinds. So, uh, but also leads to other key needs to collapse. So I think the sentence wasn't great. So basically, besides having no meaning in your life, it collapses so many other things that you need. For example, such as deep connections. What's the point of deep connections if nothing means anything? How can what's the point of talking about deep things? Like nowadays, people go, "What's the meaning of life?" And there's a movie and goes 42, like a joke, right? Okay, people. If you ask your friends, "What's the meaning of life?" wouldn't they think you're a bit weird?
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. So that's why you don't kind of have those conversations, right? So, but we don't realize how important deep connections are. And it's partly because of the way society works. It's like, oh, nothing means anything, everything's random, we're just having fun, right? Okay. And that actually so ruins deep connections, which are key to happiness. Okay, relationships are one of the fundamental things that psychologists tell us are important to happiness, right? Okay, and deep relationships, not just like hello, how's the weather, okay, we can still get the short term dopamine high, so we do get excited in different ways, right? But that's kind of through consumerism. Okay, but that is not very satisfying because it's short term, right? Okay, it's been long known by psychologists such as Viktor Frankl that meaning is the most important factor for happiness. Okay, it is also essential. Uh, it is also essential when life is difficult. As the psychologist Friedrich Nietzsche said, one who has a why to live for can endure almost any how. Does that make Have you ever heard of that? If you have a why, you can get through any how. Ever heard of that one, or is that not a common one?
Not that common though.
Have you heard of Nietzsche or Nietzsche? The
Niche.
psych Nietzsche? I think I'm not even trying to pronounce it.
Niche is
Anyway,
that there's that few things in business, isn't it?
yeah. Well, I wouldn't be surprised if business experts use psychology. It's very
No,
important.
but
Yeah.
it means something else to what you're trying to say,
Oh,
I
you're
think.
talking about niche. You're talking about niche. That's something else.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm about Nietzsche. Okay, that's how you say his name. Nietzsche or niche. Anyway, to find your why, Frankl says, the psychologist says here in his book Man's Search for Meaning, he said we should simply obey our conscience. Our conscience, according to Freud, is a magical entity or thing, best described as a personality separate from your own thinking. So it's like this weird thing, this conscience. Okay, like I'm gonna try to no, I'll read it. Okay, I thought I was running out of time. Okay, so it's like a separate thing that tells you off even when you don't want to listen to its voice. So that's why Freud, you must have heard of Freud, no?
Yeah.
A little bit, right? The
A lot
most
for
famous,
my
like
GCSEs.
theme in your GCSEs.
Yeah, there's a Jekyll and Hyde book, and he's one of the main people that we talked about.
Cool. Okay, so Freud, one of like the greatest or most well-known psychologist of in history. Anyway, okay, so he basically said this thing, basically our conscience is this weird magical thing. It does things that you don't have control of, basically, right? This conscience, which quietly steers you in a specific direction, is both evidence of a purpose and a creator who has designed you for that purpose. You cannot choose your purpose as you are not your own creator. So, what is your purpose? That purpose must be based on your highest capabilities, much like a TV remote can be used to shovel food into your mouth like a spoon, or it can be used better uh, to change the channel. So, you got a TV remote. Yeah, what's the purpose of the TV remote? You can say, well, maybe it's good for eating my food with, or maybe it's good for changing the channels. It's better. This highest purpose based on its design is to change the channels. It's not very good for eating your food with. Does that kind of make sense? right? So the
Yes.
whole point of human beings, how do you work out the purpose of a human being? In short, in a few seconds, okay, is to try to find the greatest purpose or based on your design. Okay, and so what could be a higher function of a human being than to lose yourself into the beauty of God? Okay, to increasingly, I don't know why this thing is not scrolling down. Anyway, so you can increasingly become godlike. So when I say lose yourself, it means forget your ego and let go. It's like when you lose yourself in nature, you kind of let go of all the things you're thinking and just let go and appreciate nature. It's a bit like that with God. Like, don't stop doing the stupid things your ego is telling you to do. Okay, listen to God and your life becomes better. Doesn't mean don't use your logic. It's like stop trying to show off to people and just do good things as a short version. Anyway, we're out of time. There's more stuff. Do check it out. Really appreciate you, Salah,
Mm.
joining and asking your great, insightful questions. Thank you very much, everybody else, for watching the show. Please do press the like button. Do join me next week. We're going to be talking about government and relationship with government and all that kind of stuff. Do check out the previous shows. And yeah, ask your questions, even in the non-live comments and stuff like that. Do check them out. And thank you very much. Peace be upon you. Have a nice week.
Bye.
Bye. Assalamu alaikum. So let me end the stream.